It's a special John Lund Unleashed 49ers Camp Report edition. Shout out to Lund loyalists watching on YouTube, those watching on X, Instagram, Facebook, and JohnLundUnleashed.com and the Lund Lunatics listening to the podcast on Apple and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe and like John Lund Unleashed on YouTube and keep those alerts on so you don't miss anything. Now with the latest on the 49ers and the NFL, here's Johnny.
What's happening? Happy Thursday. Happy August 21st. I hope you are doing more than outstanding on this Thursday, toasty day in the East Bay. Tremendous that you are watching on one of the ways that you could be watching. Maybe you're watching on X. You could be watching on the Bay Area Sports Collective, LinkedIn, Facebook. However you're watching, thank you for making the time on this Thursday night. And it will be well worth your while. We got a ton of stuff going on the final preseason weekend. And then we got another week off. And then we have NFL regular season football. It is fast approaching. Yes, lots of injuries and things, but a ton to get to. And as you can see right there, they're just never going to learn as far as the Nationals guys are concerned, I guess, until or even if Brock Purdy were to win a Super Bowl one of these days. And I guess they'd just rather have Anthony Richardson or just get excited about height, weight, speed, and they just don't understand about the mental side of the game. But something pretty hilarious happened today with two friends of mine, actually, on the national level, and I will explain those things to you, but we'll get to it in a moment. But welcome. We'll do roll call in just a second, but however you're watching, thank you very much. May I suggest that you come over to John Lund Unleashed on YouTube. All you got to do is come on over, hang out in the chat room, say hello. No one will bite unless you ask them to, but we got a great community going on. So we like to have a lot of fun. We like to talk the NFL, the 49ers, but everything about the NFL. So come on over. Make sure that you join John Lund Unleashed, however you're watching over here on YouTube. That would be tremendous. Please give us a like at some point during the show so that the algorithm will say, that show's not half bad, which is really nice. Get those alerts on because we do send out stuff during the day as well, not just this live show at 7 p.m. Pacific each night. That would be great as well. So make sure you do those things for us. Make sure you subscribe also on the Bay Area Sports Collective on YouTube. That would be tremendous too. So if you're watching on Facebook, great. LinkedIn, tremendous. At John Lund Radio on X, absolutely cool. We really appreciate that as well. But John Lund Unleashed on YouTube as we're trying to grow that, so that would be great. We go by the chalkboard as you see episode 223, today's moves. There's always something going on with the 49ers as far as moves as we get closer and closer to the season. When the 49ers are healthy, this is kind of an interesting thing. Win totals, Ricky and Trent talked today. Jake Moody misses more field goals. I'm telling you, that's just going to be a thing. It's just the way they're going to be. And the funny thing, as you saw the cover right there, they just don't get it. They never will. It's okay. I'm not worried about it. I don't care. Like you said, I don't care about lists. I don't care about Mount Rushmores. I don't care about what their opinion is. They just don't get it. Scouts, coaches, teams, GMs, they don't know how to pick quarterbacks. Why the hell would some talking heads who don't know what the hell they're talking about? So I will explain, and it's actually pretty hilarious. Two friends of mine today, and one of them are left going, so you will enjoy that, and we'll do that momentarily. But again, happy Thursday night, happy episode 223. A lot of stuff to talk about with the Niners, and let's say hello to everybody tonight. Jeff, one of my favorites. Jeff is here. Hi, Jeff. That's a great picture of you, by the way. Jeff is here. Hello, Pine. It is great, man. I never think I can do 7 p.m. Dude, we do a quick hour and everything, so it is great to see everybody. Kenny is a big Giants guy, and I'd love to watch the Giants, but I can't handle it anymore. I think they got doubled up tonight, right? And they played shitty baseball again. I just can't handle it. Man. I just can't. I have better things to do, and they're pathetic. And until I never thought I'd say this, they fire Bob Melvin. I have no interest in what the Giants are doing. It's a pathetic way of things, and they're far too talented to play the kind of baseball that they're playing. So I just choose not to watch. Jake, it is great to see you. My friend Pine has already got a super on the board. By the way, if you want to get your stuff on the board 100% of the time, 100%. Questions, comments, thoughts, hit me with a super and support the show, which is always greatly appreciated. Pine says, I've been watching Little League World Series religiously, and the Little League umpires are fantastic, but they've been Major League Baseball. Pine, the only one I saw that was bad, and the guy got fooled, and you probably saw it, a catcher smartly in the Little League World Series set up on the outside, like 6 inches outside, and the guy hit the kid hit the target, and the did the the old and the kid at the plate was like, really? And he missed it by 6 inches, but the kid was smart. He set it up on the outside. But for the most part, you're right. They are better. And I think one of the reasons, and Pine, you tell me, is that they just don't have the egos. They're just there to call balls and strikes. And, it's not my strike zone. It's not, we've said this a million times, it's not open to interpretation. It isn't your strike zone. There's a strike zone. It's like math, 2 + 2 = 4. There's a strike zone. It's not open to interpretation. It's not English. It's math. It's 2 + 2 = 4. It's the same strike zone. I know that Aaron Judge and Jose Altuve are 2 different size people, but the strike zone's the strike zone. And look, I tap your head. At least we can do that next year. Can't we just tap our head? Can't we just start with that with the technology we have? Can't that just be fast? I just want it to be right. I don't want to slow down the game or anything like that, but I just want it to be right. Can't be that hard. But thank you, Pine. That is a great observation on your part. I would agree with you 100%. It is great to see Big Brick in here. Like I said, Jake Kenny, it is awesome. He's got to fire him. I'm not watching. Not that they care if I watch, but they got to. And I like Bob. I've said that a million times, but it's not personal. It's business. And Bob underachieved his last year in San Diego. He underachieved the first year here. He underachieved the second year here. I loved when Bob got hired. He wanted to be in San Francisco. He loved the Giants. He played for the Giants. They're not getting it done. They're not getting it done. And that's it. Pat Burrell's got to go for sure. Bob Melvin's got to go for sure. They need a new direction. It's nothing against Buster Posey. People who rip on Devers don't get it. Devers is on, we'll get to Niners in 2 seconds. Devers is on pace to hit 31 home runs and knock in 105. It's not his fault. But when they got Devers, not his fault. There's injuries, there's issues, but it's everybody underachieving with the sticks for the most part to the back of their baseball card. And it's just pathetic baseball. That's even worse. It's dumb baseball. They make too many mental errors, physical errors, and there's been injuries too, don't get me wrong, but this is a dumb baseball team. And that's when you know somebody's got to go. So anyway, I digress. So we'll get into a bunch of Niners tonight, but there you go. It is awesome to see everybody tonight. So anyway, hello, and good evening to you. All right, today's moves, the Niners always have some of those, right? Because it's the Niners after all. And you got to have injuries and you got to have all these kind of things. So today's moves, they made the Sky Moore move official. Isn't that how you spell Sky Vodka with the 2 Y's? I'm not a Sky Vodka guy, but is that true? Sky Moore official, as I told you yesterday, that's more of a special teams move than a actual wide receiver move. That is a break a glass in case of emergency move. Tanner Mordecai has been cut, 3 times. When the people who cover the 49ers, and that's how they make their living, and they put all these deals together like Farhan's running the Niners, you're cut, you're back, you're cut, you're back, you're cut, you're back, you're back, you're cut. Like I didn't mention that Nate Sudfeld was a Niner because who the fuck cares? I mean, I knew he was going to be gone in a day. Tanner Mordecai's back. No, he's not. Who cares? If Tanner Mordecai is back and he's going to play, then the Niners season is sunk. If Nate Sudfeld's a story, then the Niners season is sunk. If a third string left guard is a big deal, then the Niners season is sunk. See where I'm going? The David Lombardis of the world and everybody who freaks out and makes a big video over every damn move that they make, put me to sleep. I mean, my God, man, it's a joke. So when there's good news and big news, I'll let you know. When there's not, it's like Nate Sudfeld, who cares? The reason I put this up right now is A, Sky Moore is official, and B, Trey Moore, we hardly knew ye. And I've been saying this since the beginning of camp. And I said this because, number one, we knew it. But number two, the minute that the Niners signed Trey Brown, the corner that they got from Seattle, who blew a knee in Seattle, buddy of mine texted me that covers the Seahawks and goes, Trey Brown will never play for you. He's always hurt. So when I went to the first day of camp and I saw Trey Brown running around, I thought, okay, he's probably not going to play. And so when people were saying, the veteran corners and stuff like that, and when I saw, Yad Lenore out there, but then Green gets hurt, the second round pick, the second year corner out of Florida State, and I thought to myself, they have no depth. And somebody said to me at a practice, well, Trey Brown. And I go, Trey Brown's never going to play for the Niners. And they went, what are you talking about? And I went, he's never healthy. And what do players who get hurt do? They get hurt. And so Trey Brown's never going to play for the Niners. He goes on injured reserve. So it goes back to who's going to play corner opposite Demo Lenore. That's a problem. Is it as big of a problem as who's going to catch passes from Brock Purdy? No, it's not that, but it's not great. So somebody that they thought from a veteran standpoint might be able to fill in as a third corner for the 49ers. And I don't mean a nickel corner. That's totally different. I'm talking about Demo Lenore. I'm talking about Renardo Green. And so that's going to be a major problem. Again, not to the receiver point, but that's a major problem. As far as our daily, or in this case, nightly look at the wide receivers, my God, I'm sure you saw this during the day. Seriously, it's getting to the point where it's like, has a position group ever been more cursed than this? So this morning it comes out that Russell Gage, who I thought by default was going to be the third wide receiver for the 49ers week 1 at Seattle. Now Russell Gage has an injury and he's questionable for week 1. I'm not making this shit up. I mean, it's just true. Russell Gage is questionable for week 1 at Seattle. And DeMarcus Robinson, we talked about last night, he didn't get 2 games. He got 3 games. I think Roger Goodell's like, because they thought he was going to get 2. He got 3. And we know about Brandon Ayuk. We know about the contract with Juwan Jennings. We know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We know Cowing hurt the same hamstring. Like, it's just et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We know Watkins and the high ankle sprain. Like, honestly, I've been covering the league for 30 years. I've been covering the 49ers since 2011. I've never seen a position group as cursed as this position group. I don't know who's going to catch passes. I guess Sky Moore in the slot by default now, because we're actually counting on Ricky Pearsall. If I'm Kyle Shanahan and I'm only half joking, I'm putting Ricky Pearsall in bubble wrap and putting him in his bed, and I'm putting like security guards around him because they're counting on Ricky Pearsall, who we all thought was made of porcelain at the beginning of training camp. Like, it's Pearsall and Sky Moore, maybe? I don't know. Is Jerry Rice really not done? Kyle Shanahan played wide receiver at Texas. Does he have wide receiver shoes? Like, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't. We'll talk about it in NFL Wire, who could be available, because that's starting to happen with players being traded, and that happened yesterday. There was a couple more today because teams are looking at their rosters going, we have an excess here. Can we get, a late pick, or can we get something for somebody? Because it looks like we're going to have excess. And that's starting to happen as teams have to cut down after this weekend. Next Tuesday is cut down day. So this isn't about like picking somebody up who's on the scrap heap right now. This is about honestly saying, is there somebody out there that we might be able to slide in week 1 against Seattle? Because it's not going to be Ayuk, and it's not going to be Watkins, and it's not going to be Robinson, and it's not going to be, it doesn't look like it's somebody Russell Gage, who, he got 70 passes for Atlanta 3-4 years ago. Like, he would have been okay. But I mean, honestly, if anything happens to Ricky Pearsall, I don't know what the hell they're going to do. And I'm not kidding. Who's on this roster? Isaiah Hodgins? I mean, Hodgins has played in the league, but my God, man, it's every day. Like, we have to have a segment on the show every day. What wide receiver got hurt today? Glad you asked. Today, it's Russell Gage. My God, man. Ridiculous. So anyway, moves today. Sudfeld, we hardly knew ye. Tanner Mordecai, Trey Brown out for the year. My God. And Sky Moore became official. And if you didn't hear the Sky Moore stuff, he's a special teams guy. Brent Boyer, the special teams coach of the 49ers, who spoke today. And training camp goes Kyle, Robert, and Brent. And that'll stop once camp gets over. But so the 3 coaches, then they pull out a couple of players. And that's kind of how it goes. So Brent Boyer spoke today. And he said, I don't know how Sky Moore is going to fit in the offense, but he said, he's a really good special teams guy, can return punts and kicks, and I think he's going to do that during the regular season. Last year of his contract, he's 25, 5'10", 190, was a second-round pick out of Western Michigan. I'm sure that the Kansas City thought he was going to do more things, got good straight-line speed at 4.4, but he just really hasn't put it together. So let's put it this way, if he has to play week 1 at Seattle, things ain't good. I'm not overly excited about him, because if Patrick Mahomes is throwing you the ball and you really didn't do a hell of a lot in Kansas City, and this is no knock on Brock, but if Patrick Mahomes couldn't make you great, then I don't have a whole lot of hopes for you. But I do think he can be a good special teams player. I just don't think he's going to be a great wide receiver. And again, in NFL Wire, we'll talk more about a couple of receivers that the 49ers could pick up potentially. And I think both of them could start, honestly, in week 1 with Ricky Pearsall. If this Jennings thing doesn't get done, we are looking at what? Thursday, Sunday, tomorrow's Friday, 16 days? Sorry, I was told there was no math on the show, but 16 days until the opener. And at some point, the Niners have to go to Jennings and say, look, you playing or not? And I'm a big proponent in deadline spur action. But the one thing I'm hearing right now is they're not close. And I'm not talking about the calf. As far as Jennings is concerned, they're not close on a deal. That could turn in like 5 seconds because Jennings camp is sitting there going, with every single receiver injury, they're having a hearty laugh going, oh, we got you over a barrel again. Now, don't we? But having said that, the Niners are still saying, look, we're not going to set a precedence by offering good players great contracts, because then every good player that we have, and we have a lot of good ones, are going to want a contract too. And you can't say that when you sign Kittle or Warner or McCaffrey last year or Trent Williams or Purdy this year. Like, over the last 2 years, they've signed great players, not good players. They've signed great players. And if you sign Jennings, who's a good player, then everybody who's a good player lines up behind Jennings and goes, well, you paid Jennings. Because if a good player goes, well, you signed Kittle, you go, yeah, and you signed Warner, yeah, and those are great players. Those are players that are the base of the house. Yeah, you're not that. But if you start signing a Jennings, now all of a sudden you've got to answer those players who are good, not great. And they're not going to give Jennings $20 million, and that's what he wants. So that's a staring contest right now that I don't know gets done in the next 16 days. I have a feeling it will, because that's just what normally happens. For example, Micah Parsons and the Cowboys, there's no doubt in my mind that gets done 100%, even though Jerry Jones was on Michael Irvin's podcast today and basically said that, no, he didn't basically say it, he said it. He said that Micah Parsons' representation told Jerry Jones to, quote unquote, shove it up their ass when he presented him a contract. Jerry Jones has literally said that on Michael Irvin's podcast. Shove it up your ass. That's what his representation told Jerry Jones. And I still think a deal is going to get done with Dallas. I do think a deal is going to get done with Jennings. And Brock Purdy said yesterday that it's no problem. That he gets on the field, we can do this. Remember, a couple years ago, when did Bosa's deal get done? September 6th. You know, that's the Niners were on a roll, getting deals done early. Purdy gets done early. Kittle gets done early. Warner gets done early. Last year, other than obviously Ayuk, they got McCaffrey done. They got Williams done. They were getting things done. I think the Jennings thing is a really difficult one because it involves a good player getting a great contract. And they don't want to give him extra years. They want to see how he plays. And he's essentially saying, I'm your de facto number one. I want $20 million. And they're saying, no. So I think it's going to get done, but that's going to go to the wire. So anyway, that's what's going on as far as moves are concerned. Before I move on to number 2, today's moves, that's what we are on the chalkboard. We're at number 1 there. Let's see. I would agree, Kenny Smith. It's going to be a lot of Kittle, a lot of McCaffrey, a lot of Ricky. In fact, if you haven't had your fantasy draft yet, I'd pick up Ricky Pearsall. I'm not saying in the first round, but if you got Ricky, help me out, because we haven't had our fantasy draft. I'm in one fantasy team every single year, and it's one that I've been doing since college, and it's and the only reason I do one is because it's for a fair amount of money. I think we throw in like $500, and it's a 12-team league, and it's just winner take all. There ain't second place, there ain't third place. It's nothing. So it's 5 times 12, and the commissioner gets he gets a couple $100 for doing it. So you get a pretty decent. I think you get like $5,800 if I'm right on that. You win a decent chunk of change, and that's it. There's one winner. There's no second place. There's no third place. Nothing like that. You just win it or you don't. And so I haven't had my draft yet. So I don't know where Pearsall is going to go. And I'm not one of those guys that's like I draft all 49ers or anything like that. When it comes to money, when it comes to it, it's just like betting with me. I don't worry about that. Like I don't bet with my heart. I don't fantasy football with my heart. I don't bet with my heart. So when it comes to Pearsall, I don't know where he's going in your draft, but I would take him about a round before you think, because think about it. Ayuk's not coming back for a while. And even if Jennings does, the telepathic nature in which Ricky Pearsall and Brock Purdy have got going. Now, I know the injury factor is still there with Ricky, so you got to kind of cross your fingers. But if Jennings doesn't come back, how many balls is Ricky Pearsall going to catch in that first week? 15? How many targets is he going to have? 20? I mean, seriously, he might win your fantasy week 1 for you. Ricky Pearsall, the San Francisco 49ers, 15 catches for 178 yards and a touchdown. I don't know. I mean, it could be crazy. Anyway, great to see you, 94. Jedi, it's good to see you. James, hello. Dom, my good friend, is here. Joy is here tonight. Awesome to see you. Who else? Everyone jumping into the room tonight. Very, very cool. And again, questions, comments, thoughts on the Niners, please hit me up with stuff like that. We're on today's moves. This is an interesting one. I saw this a couple of weeks ago. You probably did too. So we talk every day about health, right? And I want to put one caveat in here, and Kyle keeps saying this, and he's right. There has been no injury, significant injury. Trey Brown, I don't see as a significant injury. Andre Dillard, I don't see as a significant injury. You may. They haven't had a significant injury that's out for the season. Knock on wood, if you're with me. But they haven't. And so these are all injuries that can come back. We already knew of the Ayuk injury. So, yeah, they're banged up for training camp, but they're not banged up as far as the regular season is concerned. So this is an interesting number. And we know this, but I'm just reminding you, Warren Sharp puts out 2024 most injured, 6-11. 2023, one of the least injured teams win the Super Bowl. 2022, ninth most injured. That's pretty injured. 13-4. Third most injured in 2021, first most injured 2020. Remember, that was when Bosa went down and Jimmy went down and Solomon Thomas went down in New York. So they played in New York against the Giants and the Jets, and that turf got them both times. 19, sixth most injured, but still lost the Super Bowl. Jimmy could have just thrown that one ball. Anyway, fourth most injured in 2018. They weren't very good. But the point is right here is they have survived injuries a couple different times. You see in 19, you see in 22. But you also look at 2020 when 2020 when they were number 1 most injured, and 2024 when they were number 1 most injured. And both of those years coming off Super Bowls, they absolutely bombed. So what I'm asking for, and this is going to run into something in a second when I talk about trying to determine what their record is going to be. And you could probably say this about a lot of teams, but the reason why it's extra important as far as the 49ers are concerned, when they have major injuries, and especially this year, they just don't have the depth to get over it. Because they're so top heavy. I mean, they've got some of the top players in the league, but they're so top heavy. I mean, think about this. Look at the positions where they're really, really good. Quarterback, I think Brock is a top 10 quarterback. Mac Jones kind of banged up right now. I don't have a lot of faith in him. Christian McCaffrey, his backup, Isaac Guerrero, is always hurt. Beyond him, we don't know. The wide receiver group, oh my God, seriously. Trent Williams, Spencer Burford, really? Run for your life. George Kittle behind him. Hello, is this thing on? Nick Bosa, oh my God, rookies generally. Fred Warner, please no. Demo Lenore, they don't have a third corner. I'm not saying slot corner. They got a guy in Upton Stout, a guy in Chase Lucas. I like those slot guys. A third corner, and not one has emerged through training camp. So this year is going to be the same way. If they have injuries, even above average as far as NFL injuries are concerned, because as we always say, you're going to have injuries. It's just a matter of who, when, and how long. If they have major injuries this year, they don't have the depth. They just do not have the depth. And some of the players are absolutely great. And look, any quarterback in the league goes down, the biggest drop-off in any sport, in any position, in any sport, the biggest drop-off is quarterback from 1 to 2. There's just no question about it. So, yeah, Brock gets hurt. It's, season over. That's why when I see all these transactions and I see all these guys who cover the 49ers and they just freak out and they're hurrying and they're trying to, I got to get that one first. Nate Sudfeld signed. Who cares? Like if Sudfeld is something, if Mordecai is something, if some third string guard is something, if some, third string defensive tackle is something that if those people become prominent players with the 49ers this year, they're toast. So I don't really concentrate on those kind of things. I realize that they're signing those players, but it comes down to really where the 49ers will go this year and how many games they'll win. It's going to come down to health because they've got good first line players, but beyond that, it's rough, man. It's rough. And we'll get more into that in the NFL Wire because a couple of injuries already for the final week of the preseason. But again, kind of an interesting number there. And it's pretty obvious. I mean, if you're hurt, you're not going to be as good. But when it comes down to the 49ers, when they're healthy, not only do they play well, they go to NFC championship games and Super Bowls. I mean, you look at 19, they were 6 months injured, still went. 2020, horrible year. 2021, third most injured, still went to the NFC championship game. 22, most injured, lost NFC championship game. 2023, one of the least injured teams, lost to the Super Bowl. And then last year, most injured, and my God, 6-11 and pathetic. So it's hard to overcome injuries in the NFL. I mean, that's pretty obvious, right? Thank you, Captain Obvious. You're welcome. But that's the deal. So having said that, people are talking Jake Moody. We'll get to it in a second. Now, having said that, somebody asked me this. I was on ESPN radio last night, and you may have heard me because we had to be quick on the show yesterday. So I was on ESPN radio last night talking Niners with the guys, and they asked me about the over-under on the Niners. So there's Spot Rack right there. And they have the Niners at 10. I think they said ESPN bet because it was ESPN radio after all. This is DK Sportsbook, whatever. Many people are saying between 10 and 11. They asked me last night, of course, that ESPN bet had them at 10.5. Now, remember, you may be saying to yourself, Niners after 6 wins, it's 10 or 10.5. Are they insane? Well, they do have the easiest schedule in all of the NFL. They do have only one team that is a playoff team that is going to visit Levi's Stadium, that being the Rams, and the Niners play pretty well against the Rams normally, unless Debo's dropping an easy touchdown pass, as what happened last year. So 10.5 is what everybody's saying. And so despite all these injuries, the boys who put their money where their mouth is in Vegas say 10, 10.5, something in that range. So I'm going to ask you that question, and I'll get to the chat line because there's a lot of stuff going on there. But what would you say? Would you say 10, 10.5? You've seen training camp. We're almost through it. Basically, tomorrow is the last day of training camp. Then they play on Saturday, and then you got 10 days, and then they get into season mode, and then they play the Seahawks 10 days. I mean, that's it. And they're in Seattle a week from Sunday. So let me ask you that. 10, 10.5, depending on where you are. Where would you go? Would you go over? Would you go under? Because let's call it 10.5, not 10, because 10.5 makes it hard. Would you go over or under 10.5 with the 49ers, knowing that the schedule stinks, that they play one team at home with a playoff that was a playoff team last year, that being the Rams, knowing though also that New Orleans is easy on paper, but you got to go across the country. Tampa's not great, but you got to go across the country. They go to the Texans. That's not going to be an easy one. You go in the division. I happen to think that Seattle is going to be a pretty decent team. Mike McDonald's a really good head coach. LA, the Rams are kind of tough because everything depends to me on Matthew Stafford. If our old buddy Jimmy Garoppolo is the starting quarterback for the Rams, that's something that the Niners and everybody in the division could take advantage of. Arizona, to me, I don't know. Everybody is buzzing about Arizona. I don't see it. I'll be honest with you. I just don't see it. I'm not a Kyler guy. I respect Jonathan Gannon, their defensive coordinator, who, of course, used to be Philly's defensive coordinator. Walter Nolan was their first-round pick. I think that they had a nice draft, but they've got a lot of holes, I think. I think that Marvin Harrison Jr., again, if you're thinking about fantasy football, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be better. He's bigger. But I think on the offensive and defensive lines, they're not quite the team that Gannon wants them to be. And look, Arizona is a pain in the ass. They always tend to play the Seahawks and the Niners kind of tough, but I don't think they're there yet. So that's kind of what I see. So I see them here's where it's tough, and I don't want to be a fence sitter and get a splinter in my butt, but I see them right around 10. And they always have one of those games where we scratch our head, or even one or two in a row where we scratch our head and we go, how'd they lose that game? Remember a few years ago when it was like Cleveland went through that stretch where, what was it? Cleveland, Minnesota. There was somebody else in there. Cincinnati, I think it was. Cleveland, Minnesota, Cincinnati, like 3 in a row. Earlier on, before all the injuries, and again, Kyle's right. They haven't had a one that's going to put them out for the season. I don't know. I'm tend to start kind of leaning towards 9 now, because I'm seeing that they're really thin at a lot of positions, and they're so reliant on rookies. Mikael Williams still not back today. CJ West still not back. Upton Stout still not back. Like, a lot of these rookies are missing really key reps. and it's making me kind of pull it back a little bit. Having said that, now the other side to me is Brock Purdy's going to have a great year. I don't care who's there and who's not. Brock Purdy is going to have a great year. And don't leave, because this is going to be hilarious. I'll do this let me do this in 10 minutes. This thing right here, this they'll never learn thing. Hi, Colin. We'll do that in about 10 minutes. This is hilarious. I think Brock's going to have a great year. Quit asking people about Christian McCaffrey. I told you, man. He's healthy. I told you that at the beginning of camp. I told you that when they came back for the final OTAs. I stood right next to Christian McCaffrey, and it went, so you're like, it wasn't even out of my mouth, and he turned to me and went, I'm healthy. Like, what else do I got to do, man? He looks like he's made out of brick. I mean, he's healthy, man. Oh, but he's 29. He had injuries in Carolina. Whatever, man. He's healthy. I'm telling you. Stop asking him. He's going to punch you right in the face. He's healthy. So, anyway, I think McCaffrey's healthy. I think Kittle's healthy. I think Trent is fine. Those things can change in a snap. There's no doubt. That's the league. And that's why I'm thinking 9. I'm sorry. The reason I'm thinking 9 is because guys are going to get hurt. It's not a matter of if they'll get hurt. Baseball is if they'll get hurt. NBA is if they'll get hurt. NFL is they will get hurt. And these are older players, and there's just no depth. And we're seeing it in training camp, and it's scaring the hell out of me, because the drop off from Trent to Burford is massive. The drop off from McCaffrey to Garendo, who can't stay healthy, massive. The wide receivers, the corners. Like, maybe I don't want to be a pessimist here, but it's just like, ugh. I'm just seeing this is a really thin team. But it also wouldn't surprise me. I'll stay at my 9, and you can laugh at me and scream at me and yell at me, and that's cool. You can disagree. That's what our room is all about. That's what the show is all about. You don't have to agree with me. But I also wouldn't be completely shocked. And I've said 9, so I'm going to stick with it. But I wouldn't be surprised if they went 12, because Kyle at the end of the year gets hot. They stay healthy. Ayuk comes back. I could see it. And like I said, Brock's going to have a good year. I really believe that. To me, it's this young defense. How quickly will they gel? That's everything, right? Everything is how quickly can this defense gel. And the problem is, if they can't get on the field together to gel, then how do they gel? Whoa. Just blew my mind. In other words, Mikael Williams, CJ West, Upton Stout, all these guys, they're not on the field right now. So if you can't have continuity, if they're not even playing together, how quickly can they play well together when they're not even on the field? Make sense? All right. So when will the 49ers get healthy? I played that for you. Win totals. I'm going to go over that with you in the chat room right now. So there it is right there. Let me do that one more time. Baltimore 12, Buffalo 12. See, that's what blows your mind, is the top number. This is DK Sportsbook, whatever that is. So the Niners are only 2 off the highest number. Ooh, math. So Baltimore, Buffalo, then KC at 11, Philly at 11. Philly's going. Like, if I had to go 1 over, Philly's going over 11. Cincinnati 10. So by this sports book, Denver, Detroit, Green Bay, the Chargers, the Rams, and the Niners all at 10. I don't think the Niners are as good as Detroit. I don't think the Niners are as good as – I don't think they're 1 less than Philly. Again, I'm not pessimistic on them. Maybe I am a little taken aback just because of the injuries in camp. So that's the only thing. But again, that schedule is easy. God, I'm going back and forth in this thing. I'm going back and forth. I can't do that. I'll see 9. So you tell me. All right. Jedi says both going under. Niners, let's see. Niners are too top heavy and light on depth. I stick with 10 and 7. Anything greater, it's awesome, but too many questions. 10 and 7 probably gets you in the playoffs, though. That's what I mean. 9 and 8 probably doesn't. 10 and 7, does that get you in the playoffs? Maybe it doesn't. I think Seattle's better than people think. I think the Rams, everything is dependent on the health of Stafford, which I'm not sure he's got. Jake says, I've got Conner on the same team with Purdy. I've been looking to move him. Ooh, but no bites. Not sure he's going to get better. That's crazy. You got Trey McBride. That's good. See, I mean, he's different in fantasy, right, Jake? Because, I mean, he can run and all that kind of stuff, so all that kind of stuff. But just Kyler is like a straight-up quarterback. Not huge. Not huge. Oh, hi, 49. Hey, what's up? Thank you, man. I appreciate that. All I was trying to say was like, you know, all these other cities like Philly, New York, they freak out. And it's like, we're big-time fans, and we're great. We're the best West Coast sports city. It's just that we don't like, hey, if our team loses, we don't go in the tank for a week. We don't go to work and like, oh my God, my production's down at work, for 3 or 4 days. It doesn't work like that. And I worked in Detroit. Like they get pissed. They freak out, man. Like 3 days, the Lions lose and they're, they talk about it for like 5 days. They freak out. Production is down at the Chrysler plant. It's like, man, dude, get over it. Ooh, Pine's going big time aggressiveness. 13-4. Book it. I'm gonna remember this, man. Somebody take a screenshot of that. I should take a screenshot of that. Here, look at it. I just did. I just took a screenshot of Pine saying 13-4. Book it. If you got listen, Pine, if they go 13-4, I just screenshotted that. I said somebody take a screenshot, and I just did. If they go 13-4, I don't know what I'm going to do for you, but I'm going to do something because that's 13-4. You got it. I'm saying 9-8 now. What do you think? Niners 10-7. See, 10-7, I could see 10-7. I definitely could see 10-7. That thing. But here's the other thing too. Let me do this. Let me look at the schedule because here's what Niners fans would say. Like, where do you see 8 losses? Because it is hard. With injuries though, you could see it. But let me just pull this up real quick. I got to get one that's, here we go. Printable schedule. Here we go. This is the easy one. Geez, that is tiny. Lord almighty. I don't want that one. I just did Niners printable schedule. It's like, that thing's tiny. You can't even see it. Let's see. Yeah. Accept cookies, whatever. Okay. Let's do this. Since we're playing this game, let's do this. Let me share my screen with you. Because I don't know if I even see, I get it. I don't even know if I see 8 losses. It's hard to see. Okay, throw the preseason out here. Get junk off my screen. All right, at Seattle. I'm just saying that's a tough game. New Orleans, that's a tougher game than you think. They have a terrible quarterback situation there. Maybe Jay Kaner or Pal from Danville gets that start. But they got a rookie there potentially. The issue there, you're going across the country. But again, probably get that win. You got the Cardinals at home. They're a pain in the ass, but you probably get that win. Jacksonville 3 wins. Rams at Rams. If Stafford's there, probably lose. Tampa probably lose. I told you they might be 5-5 and then they take off. So that's 3-3 for me. Atlanta probably win. Texans probably lose. That's 4-4. The Giants are going to be interesting because I'm going to do this in the wire tonight. Is Russell Wilson starting that game or is Jackson Dart? You probably still win, but you're going across the country 5-4. Rams home, you're going to say 6-4, so I'll give it to you. At Cardinals, that's going to be tougher than you think. You're saying 7-4 Pine, right? Carolina, you're winning that. Pine, you're saying 8-4. At Cleveland, remember that a couple of years ago they lost that game, but their quarterback situation, is Flacco going to beat him like he did in the Super Bowl? Probably not. 9-4. Tennessee, that's a bad team. 10-4. A messed up Indianapolis team. Daniel Jones still starting at that point is at 11 wins. Bears going to be better is at 12. Also, that's where you see 13 because you beat Seattle at home. So, I mean, the schedule is ridiculously easy. Ridiculously easy. How many games are even toss-up games? Like Seattle's a toss-up. Bears are a toss-up. Colts stink. Tennessee stinks. Cleveland stinks. Carolina stinks. Arizona could be a toss-up. Rams could be a toss-up. Giants stink, but you're going across the country. Houston's tough. Atlanta going to be better, but you're at home. But they lose weird games like that sometimes. Tampa's a playoff team, and you're going across the country. At the Rams is tough, even though I know it's Levi's South. Jacksonville stinks. Arizona at home still a little tough. New Orleans stinks, but you're going across the country. At the Seahawks is going to be a tough game. So, look, I don't even know, as I'm saying 9-8, I don't even know if there's 8 games, 8 losses there. But I am saying that they are so thin outside of their stars and they're counting out a lot of rookies that I get nervous. The one thing, and I said this last night, that I'll stand behind if you're on the half full side of the Niners over under here. And again, I'll just pop it up if you just jumped in here, and welcome. That's DK Sportsbook. But again, I was on ESPN radio last night and they said ESPN bet said 10.5. And they asked me which way to go on that. And I said under. There might not be 8 losses on there, like I'm saying 9-8, but with the injuries and the thinness of the roster, you could see something like that. But I understand why you'd be optimistic, because we just went through the thing and I went, well, 13-4, if you're being optimistic, and Pine could be onto something. And we did, I did screenshot that. So Pine will get full credit at the end of the year. What's everybody else saying? A lot of people saying 10-7. We got a lot of 10-7s in there. Injuries will happen, fellas. Yeah, there's no doubt. And ladies. Yeah, they will. It's the NFL. And so, yeah, I'm with you, Lost Crew. I'm seeing something like that. I don't know. Injuries happen, man. But the other thing is, Kyle late in the season owns it. And one of the reasons why he does it right now is he does that whole callus thing. We've talked about it. James is going 8-9. 8-9, even after looking at that schedule. Jedi's got 11-6, 12-5. Salah D. That's one thing. That's it. That's one thing I will say. Salah being back on D. I will say that Salah D, Boyer special teams, having Kubiak as a kind of a right-hand man, which I think they've missed since Mike McDaniel left town. I think that's more important than what people think. And having a better coaching staff, which a lot of people are really undervaluing. I mean, last year it was Nick Sorensen, man. They had a rookie defensive coordinator. Brian Schneider was a joke of a special teams coach that they should have fired halfway through the season. Oh, look at this. We got a 5-12er. We got a 5-12er. That's all right. Everybody's opinion is welcome on this show. See this? We're going to get into Moody, and you knew it, so that's what you did. Moody loses 2 games at least. That's okay. We totally forgive you. You can come in anytime you want. You know that. That's all right. See, right here. I mean, you're 100% right. The Niners played down to last place teams. Split with LA and Seattle for sure. So, yeah. I mean, look, they have one of those games where you scratch your head every single friggin' year. But every team does that. They just do. It's hard to be up for 17 weeks and you have the injuries. So, yeah, that's why they play the games. So, all right. We've got a cross section there. We have a low of 5-12. We have a high of 13-4 as we look at numbers tonight. So win totals up there on the board. So there you go. That's where we are with the 49ers. And again, the reason we're bringing that up is lots of people are talking win totals. ESPN Radio asked me about that last night. I just said under 10.5, which is what they had last night. Should we do Moody here or no? No, let's not do Moody. Well, yeah, let me skip ahead. I'm going to do Ricky and Trent in a second, but let me do Moody since people brought him up. So let me tell you a story before I get into Moody. So you see this kid, Noah Furtado right there? He's helping Eric Branch on the beat for the San Francisco Chronicle. Get this. If you're a regular either listener on the podcast of the show, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your favorite podcast, or viewer on YouTube, John Lund Unleashed, we invite you to come over. Maybe you're on X watching at John Lund Radio on X, or however you're watching. You may have watched enough to know that my son is a student, a senior at Arizona State. He was riding in the Cape Cod League this year, writing baseball, huge baseball guy. Now he's quickly moved over and he is traveling with Arizona State football this year. They're expecting to have another good year, and he's a beat writer for Arizona State football this year. And a guy that's 1 year ahead of him went to ASU, went to the Cronkite Broadcast School there, is Noah Furtado. I knew Noah because I've been to I've covered about 15 Super Bowls, and Noah happened to be at a Super Bowl with what's called Blaze Radio at Arizona State at the Niners Chiefs Super Bowl in Vegas. So I sit down with 3 or 4 kids from Arizona State there, and I do their show, and I'm obnoxious and all that kind of stuff like I normally am. And afterwards, I get off. I was on with them for like an hour after my show on KNBR, and I get off and I ask the guys, I go, what do you want to do? And the other guy, one of the kids was from Boston, and he wanted to be on WEEI, and another kid was, this, and he wanted to be a play-by-play guy. And I turned to this guy, Noah, right there, that young man, and he said, well, I want to be a writer. And I said, okay, that's cool, man. All right, well, good luck to all of you. If I can ever help, whatever. So it happened to be that who was standing there? I'm trying to think who was standing there. Anyway, there was somebody from the Bay Area standing there. I introduced him and everything, and I didn't really think anything of it after that. Then I go to the first day of training camp and I see him and I go, hey, I know you. It so happens that Noah was a classmate of George's at the Cronkite School at Arizona State. He's 1 year ahead. And the San Francisco Chronicle hired him at the age of 22 to be a beat writer for the 49ers. So good for him. So anyway, follow Noah right there at _ Noah Furtado. He is a beat writer along with Eric Branch at the Chronicle covering the 49ers and a classmate of my son's, and gives me hope that my son will actually get a job after college, because if Noah did it, maybe my son could too. So congratulations to Noah. Welcome him to the Bay Area. Hit him up. And right out of the gate, he gets a job with the San Francisco Chronicle covering the Niners. Not half bad. So first of all, congratulations to Noah Furtado. Second of all, he brings this up today. Jake Moody kicked 3 for 5 during the field goal practice period, made his first 3, 33, 40, and 43. Missed his next 2, 47 wide right, and 55 bounced off the right voice, which he often does. Now, look, you could be saying to yourself at this point, we're talking about practice, and you'd be right. But this is going to be a season-long thing, everybody. It just is. It just is. He hits from 59 in the game against the Raiders in the preseason. We all love him. It's a 50-yarder to put it in to tie the game anyway. It's 4 or 5. Kyle Shanahan afterwards says that's a hell of a job kicking, and he's 100% right. And then in practice, he hits 33, 40, and 43, misses from 47 and 55. And I got news for you, man. This is going to be a long season, a season-long discussion. It just is. Jake Moody's got a hell of a lot of talent. Jake Moody's got mental issues. Jake Moody's going to miss kicks he should make. That's what he is. He's an extremely talented guy. He's great on kickoffs. He is an inconsistent kicker. He can miss from 36. He can make it from 60. It's just the way it's going to be. And we're going to talk about him all season long. And we just talked about over-under on how many wins the Niners are going to have. I don't know. My over-under on how many games Jake Moody makes it. I don't think he's going to make it through the season. I don't. I think Kyle Shanahan is going to be driven crazy. I think Jake's going to miss a key kick that's going to lose a football game. And I think that Kyle's going to say, I've had it. And I played this for you earlier in the week where Kyle Shanahan said, look, I don't talk to kickers. He's just not into it. He just wants them to make the kick. He doesn't know what to say to them. He doesn't know the psychology of them. It's not really his bag. There was a debate. John Lynch said, hey, Kyle's really into special teams. He's not. I was there when they drafted him. I've told the story a million times. Kyle burst into the room where we were broadcasting and said, I wanted a running back. So he's not really into it. And I would be surprised if Jake Moody, and I'm not saying this to be negative. I can just feel the vibe in the room. I would be surprised if Jake Moody made it through the season. He's just inconsistent. And I think that the entire organization would rather have consistency from a shorter distance than they would the occasional 59-yarder, but inconsistency with a miss from 44. I don't know if that kicker is out there. Maybe that kicker isn't. I don't know that it was ever Greg Joseph. He isn't a great kicker. I don't know where they're going to find said kicker. They're not overly difficult to find. I would rather have that veteran guy. And I bet that Jake Moody goes somewhere else where he doesn't have the pressure of being that third-round pick, which is the equivalent of being a first-round pick at any other position. I don't know. I don't know what the psychology is, but he just seems to have an issue. Maybe he knows that Kyle Shanahan really doesn't deep down like kickers. I don't know what the case is with Jake Moody. I'm not rooting against him. I'm really not. I want him to succeed. I want him to justify the third-round pick. I don't want him to justify me screaming, no, when he got picked in the draft. I don't want to be right. I want to be dead wrong. I want him to kick well. It's an important position that we don't love talking about. When you have to talk about a kicker or a punter, an offensive lineman, something like that, 9 times out of 10, it's a negative thing. You know, when you talk about a kicker, the only time you're talking about him is when he misses a kick or when he misses a tackle or when he gets hurt or something stupid. Same thing with a punter. Like a punter is like, all right, every once in a while, a coffin corner kick that goes out at the 1, but 9 times out of 10, it's like the kicker with a stupid punt or the punter punted it out of the end zone or the punter, whatever. Whiffed on it or, so those kind of things, you kind of a negative thing. So look, I hope I'm wrong about Jake Moody, but the inconsistency, even if it's practice, like the very fact that my friend Noah here has to say this about practice. I don't know if there's any other team right now in the league that is sending tweets out like this. Practice field goals. Is anybody else in the league doing this? I don't think so. I could be wrong because I'm not covering any other team, but I could be wrong. But my God, you don't want to do that. You don't want to be sending out practice field goal makes and attempts. That means that your kicker is inconsistent. So anyway, just a thought. I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I really hope I'm wrong on this. I do not want to talk about Jake Moody practice field goals all year. I don't. I really don't. But anyway, that's where we are. So anyway, your thoughts, please. That would be nice. Let's see, where else are we on this thing? So let me do it because I did Moody near the end. So let me go back up. Let's let you hear from a couple of guys. Here is first Ricky Pearsall. And I hope we don't have to do this either. The receivers. And again, if you're just joining us, Russell Gage, the latest to be injured. So Ayuk, we know, injured. Watkins, we know, high ankle sprain. Robinson, we now know 3 games. We thought it might be 2. Just the most cursed position, at least in training camp, that I've ever seen in my entire life. And here's Ricky Pearsall talking about it because he's all of a sudden got to be a leader and no progress with Jennings. So here is the number 1 receiver for the 49ers by default, Ricky Pearsall, talking about having to step up, especially week 1 in Seattle.
Feel that way, I guess. I always try to be a leader in the room no matter what room I step in. That's just how I was raised. That's how my parents raised me to be. And, I don't think anything changes depending on what the room looks like. Obviously, we got guys like BA still in the room and JJ still in the room. And, those are 2 leaders in the room, too, that I'm able to, ask questions to still and bounce off of. And, it's really good to have those guys still in the room even though they're out. And hearing feedback from them guys. And then for me, is what can I do? What can I bring to the table, too, as well? So, just keeping that mindset. And then, I think, as far as the receiver room, we were just talking about this after practice. It's us. We looked around and it's like, it's us. Let's go to work regardless of, who's in the room. And, we got a new addition today. So,
the only thing I would ask Ricky, and I really like Ricky, and I've told you I'm a big Ricky fan. If you're, I don't know, where would Ricky go in your fantasy draft? 4th round, 5th round, 6th round, whatever. He's going to catch 15 balls the first day in Seattle because I don't know who else is going to catch a ball. And the other thing I'm going to ask, you said, well, we were in the room saying it's just us. Who? Were you talking to yourself? Were you talking to Sky Moore? I mean, who else is there? I don't know. You weren't talking to Russell Gage. You weren't talking to Juwan Jennings. I mean, maybe you were talking to Jennings because he's in there, but he's not physically working. I guess you were talking to Brandon Ayuk, but he was in sweats. I mean, for week 1, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know who they're going to have. I don't know. In the wire tonight, we will talk about a couple of names that there is speculation that could either get traded or cut, who could be 49ers and honestly could be starters in about 10 days in Seattle. But it's going to be Ricky Pearsall and a couple of days ago I said Pearsall, I think the Jennings contract will get worked out, and Russell Gage, who has experience in this league and has had a pretty good camp, and now Gage is hurt. And maybe Jennings gets done. I mean, again, deadline spur action. And if you haven't been watching the show, I'm telling you, it's more contract than calf at this point. If there's the right contract, all of a sudden it's going to be a miracle. The calf is going to be fine. So I do believe, because this is just how it works in sports. It works this way in business. Bosa's deal got done right before they went to Pittsburgh 2 years ago, September 6th to be exact. And a couple days later, they beat Pittsburgh. So it happens. I think Terry McLaurin's deal gets done right before Washington has their opener. I think that Micah Parsons' deal gets done right before Dallas plays Philadelphia on Thursday, September 4th. I mean, that's the way that I think it's going to happen. Deadline spur action. So I think Jennings is going to be there. But the other thing I hope that is, if really there is a calf issue, that all of a sudden he comes back, they do get the contract done, and then the calf really does get hurt because he hasn't been working. So we'll see. Anyway, that's the latest on that one. So Ricky Pearsall says, we're in the room and everything's going to be fine. And then this is the other one, and this is Trent on the chalkboard tonight. And I've told this story, but I'll tell it again before I play Trent. So I go down to the final OTAs, and they make players available. And in the media room, the players don't usually come to the media room. What they do is they come to an auditorium, and we ask them questions there. But it just so happened during those OTAs, the players came into the media room. And so I'm standing right next to Christian McCaffrey. I'm to his right. And the only thing we want to ask Christian is, how you feeling, right? And he wouldn't normally be at these. It was a voluntary, and he wouldn't normally be at these, but there were so many guys who were injured that Christian actually came to it. So we're standing there, and everybody knows what we want to ask Christian, and nobody does. And so I feel like, shit, I'll ask it. So I said, hey, Christian, how you feeling? And before I could finish the feeling part, he interrupts and goes, feeling great. Everything's great. Everything's good. Never felt better. Goes on this thing to basically tell everybody I'm fine. And then probably 3 or 4 versions of that question is asked in various ways. And Christian's one of the nicest guys you could ever meet. Having said that, he's very matter of fact. He's not a comedian. He's not he doesn't expand on things a whole lot, but you could tell in that one instance, he wanted it out that he's fine, that there's nothing, the Achilles isn't an issue, this is an issue, that's not an issue, that anything else. And I think the final questions were, hey, you're a dad, what's that like, or whatever. Christian McCaffrey is a maniac. I mean, that's just the best way to put it, in a good way. He, body's a temple. He looks amazing. He eats the right things. He does the right things. Everybody, well, you're getting to that age, man. You're 28, you're 29, whatever the case may be. He's great. And so ever since that day, there's been some variance. He's been up to the podium probably twice in training camp. There's always that variance of question of how are you? And the last time he went up there was probably a week ago, and somebody asked him the question. And again, he cut him off, and not in a negative way. In fact, it was the week of the Denver practices. It was the day of. So I think it was Thursday, because there was people from Channel 9 in Denver asking him questions. So it was that Thursday of the joint practices against Denver. That was the last time he went to the podium. And I wouldn't say that he was annoyed with the question, but he was certainly sick of answering it. And so what we've done as a media is we've gone to ask the other players. We asked Brock in Vegas about how he looks. And so we don't ask him anymore. We ask the others. And to a man, they're all saying, look, man or woman, he looks great. I don't know how else to describe it. He has been awesome. And he has. If you wanted to rank people of how great their camp has been, I'd probably say McCaffrey 1, Kittle 2, Brock 3. And then whatever, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Those 3 guys are actually probably tied for first. That's why we don't talk about them a whole lot, because they're all really good. But Christian McCaffrey's had a tremendous camp. He's got bursts through the middle. He's catching everything. He's one-handed stuff. He just, and you know this story. Kyle has to a lot of times save him from himself because he wants to play all the time. And he may be overused this year because Isaac Guerrero gets hurt a lot. He's already missed some camp. James, the rookie from Oregon, who I really like and has looked good in camp, broke a finger and he's already been banged up. Amir Abdul, who they brought in, the veteran, he's already on injured reserve. Corey Kiner, who a lot of people liked, I know Krug loves him. He got put on injured reserve, waived injured reserve, but then came back because nobody claimed him. So Kiner's there as well, but there's nobody really, and don't get me wrong, I like Guerrero, but he's been A, banged up a little bit, and B, he didn't play a lot of running back in college. He was a receiver and then played 1 year at Louisville. He's still learning how to move and float in the zone scheme. So he's good, don't get me wrong. I know he made the big run in Seattle. I know he's shown some flashes, but he's not all the way there. And I tell you about trust all the time with coaches. The trust isn't 100% there with him, but he's a nice player who has potential, who, because of his receiver background, can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's fine. He can play. But when it comes down to it, Kyle Shanahan just trusts Christian McCaffrey that much more. So McCaffrey's in great shape. That's a long way of saying Christian McCaffrey's in really good shape. So what happened today? I told you. We've resorted to, as a media, asking his teammates, how does he look? So what did Trent Williams get asked today? How does Christian McCaffrey look, Trent? Here's what he said.
Do you want to just go ahead on that?
Yeah. Obviously, y'all got eyes like I do. Christian looks fantastic. I mean, he looks like Offensive Player of the Year, Christian. So that's really, really refreshing to see, knowing that, what he had to deal with last year, just a little nicks and knacks, and, not being able to do what he loves. To see him out there this year, 100% healthy, treating every play like it's his last, playing with his hair on fire. It really motivates the guys when you got a generational talent like that brings it to work.
Yeah, so that's where we are. Could Christian McCaffrey still get hurt? Sure. He's of that certain age, but it isn't through a lack of work ethic. Christian McCaffrey works as hard as anybody else. I'm sure you already know that. It's been talked about a ton. I'm simply saying it because, honestly, I don't know what else to say or how else to say it. I get asked it every time. I get texted it by friends all over the country who cover other teams. I get texted or asked about it or hit up on social media about it from either friends or listeners or viewers because they have a fantasy football draft or something. And I don't mind answering it. It's just that by my eyes in seeing him and in talking to players down there, it's like, look, he's in the best shape of his life. And he's of that age, right? Late 20s. And you got that magical age of 30 creeping up on him. And Kyle Shanahan running backs, it's 1 foot in the ground and go. It's not dance. It's none of those kind of things. You get hit, you're going to take hits, and you're Christian McCaffrey, and you've been hurt before, and I get it. So I understand why people would be like, are you sure? But I'm just telling you, as far as before the season starts and how healthy he is, there is no question in anyone's mind. That's all. Could he get hurt week 1? Yes. But as of right now, the Niners are trying to protect him. He's not going to see the field in preseason or in this final preseason game. That's a fact. But he's in good shape. So there you go. So we've done it in kind of roundabout way. So today's moves, when the 49ers are healthy, we did. Win totals we talked about. Ricky spoke. Trent spoke. We talked about Moody missing a couple of practice field goals today. That's just going to be a point of contention and discussion all season long. And we're at the point of they still don't get Brock. And that was the cover of today's show. And so we're going to do that in just 1 second. There you go. You're going to laugh at this. You're going to like this. So we're going to do that in a second. But let me hit the chat once again. EB, it is great to see you, my friend. Let's see. James, it is great to see you. I haven't seen you the silverback. By the way, Trent Williams is, we just talked about Christian McCaffrey. Trent is about the best guy ever, honestly. Trent is about the best guy ever. When we would go down to training camp every year, my favorite interview every year was Trent. And he would come in just like that. Was he sleeveless today? He had to be. He's always sleeveless. Yeah. So get this. Trent would come in when we would do one-on-one interviews with Trent, he would come in. He never came. I've never seen him wear sleeves. So he would come in and he would sit down for the interviews on our show every year. And I would go, I would say it, and he would laugh every single year and have fun with us. And I'd say, dude, if I were you, I would never, ever, ever wear sleeves, like suits. I would never and he would always have a good time with it. I'd always do the same dumb line. And he's just one of the nicest guys you could ever meet. Really good dude. So anyway, Trent Williams, great guy. By the way, thank you so much for supporting the show. We always love supers. If you want your stuff on the screen, 100% guaranteed, supers are a great way to do it. So Pine has got it. Watching a Little League World Series. This is our good friend Fuji. Yes, merch we're working on. I told you we would, and we are. And yes, bottom of the pint. I told Krug told me he was in for this week. We're good. Great question. I said this before, and I believe it. I don't think Moody's going to have a very long leash this year, and it's going to be because they've got a great special teams coach, and ultimately Kyle will rely on said coach. And I said this a little bit earlier. One of the reasons why I'm optimistic, even though I said 9 wins, one of the reasons I'm optimistic is because they've got their best coaching staff in a long time. Kyle doesn't really have to worry about the defense. Salah's back. Kyle doesn't have to worry about special teams as much. Brant Boyer is an experienced special teams guy who at every turn this offseason, you want your punter? Fine. You want your long snapper? Fine. You want this special teams guy? They brought in a boatload of them. Fine. You want Sky Moore now to return punts and kicks? Fine. They've given him everything he could possibly want. You worry about special teams. Kyle brings in a right-hand man as a co-offensive coordinator, even though Kyle's got total power and everything else. He's got a guy to bounce things off for the first time since Mike McDaniel. This is what he needs as a staff so that he can be a leader of men, which he's had to watch too much. Oh, Nick Sorensen's a rookie DC. Let me watch. Brian Schneider, the special teams are going haywire, bananas. I got to watch that. He's not that way this year. So I realize that they're thinner than they've been, but from a coaching standpoint, they're in good shape, the best shape they've been in a while. So my point in saying that is although Brant Boyer has full power as a special teams coach, Kyle Shanahan's not going to put up with a lot of shit when it comes to Moody. And I know that, we're talking about practice as far as special team or field goal makes and misses, but I just don't think he's going to have a whole lot of leeway as far as missing kicks. I just don't. I think it's going to be, I think that Kyle's going to be pissed. And like I told you, Robbie Gold, 53 and in. I know I can put it on my sheet, 53 and in. That's going to be 3 points. He doesn't like the fluctuation. Nobody does, but it drives him crazy. So I don't think he's going to have a lot of leash this year. I don't. Thanks, 94. Appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. Thank you for the donation to the show. Like I said, we will have it ready. I will double check on those, but I did do the order. We'll see where that's at. Thank you for keeping, by the way, thank you for keeping me on that. Honestly, thank you for keeping me on that. I appreciate that. Awesome show. Appreciate your insight. Thank you. I appreciate that. We work hard on it. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. So I was talking, this is my lovely wife, Lainey. She is the engine that keeps the family going, believe me. She was telling me last night, she goes, even if I wanted to donate to the show, I don't know how to do it. And I'm like, it's so easy. So she must have figured it out. Very nice. Very nice. I'll spend that $5 on you, lovely lady, later on. Thank you to 49ers Faithful. Thanks for busting your ass. It's a labor of love, my friend. A labor of love. Has bought gifts for the whole team yet? No, usually they do that at the end of the year. So in other words, thanks for protecting me. Here's a Toyota Tundra. I will say that I was going to ask Trent this question and I forgot because remember that George Kittle wanted his Toyota from last year, whether I think it was a Sequoia or a Tundra. I think it was his was a Sequoia. And Trent said he was going to take it. And then I don't think Trent ever did. I mean, they're $85,000 vehicles. And I don't think Trent ever took his. And so George wanted it. And I don't know how that ever ended up. Of course. Look at this. Tangy, very nice to see you here tonight. Glad I can catch the show tonight. Thank you, Tangy. I appreciate it, man. I'm glad you could catch the show as well. And you can always catch the show later. Thank you for all the supers tonight. We're up to 11 supers. Thank you for donating to the show tonight. It is very much appreciated. And again, you can always super the show. All you got to do is hit me up and you're donating to the show and you're getting your questions, comments, and thoughts on the show 100%. So thank you very much for donating to the show. And again, let me make sure that I hit everybody up that did that. Thanks to Pine tonight, Fuji for a few of them tonight. Thanks to 94, my good friend, Carlos. Also, thanks to my lovely wife, Lainey, 49ers Faithful tonight, hitting us up a couple of different times. And Tangy, thanks to everyone for the supers tonight. That is great. All right. So I had the cover of the show today. There it is. So for those who don't know, I worked with Colin Cowherd in Portland back in, my God, this was a long time ago. Worked in Portland in 1999 through like 2002, something like that. And anyway, I did drive time. Colin did middays, and then Colin went from middays in Portland at KFXX in Portland to ESPN Radio. So Colin and I have been friends that whole time, and I like Colin. I'm friends with Colin, but that doesn't mean that everything Colin says is right. I'm sure he would say the same thing about me. So, and then for years and years and years, Papa and I, we had Greg Cosell on our show, NFL Films. Greg is a great guy. If you don't know Greg, essentially what Greg Cosell does is he sits in a room all day long in Philadelphia and just pours over tape. So when he says something, there is no bias one way or the other. It's just Greg Cosell saying, this is what the tape shows. One thing I learned about Greg Cosell many, many, many years ago is that if I said to Greg, hey, Greg, give me your opinion on this. It wasn't an opinion. It wasn't a like. It wasn't a hate. He would just reference the tape. John, the tape says this. The tape says that. You know, there was no speculation. There was no bias. There was no, if you ever heard any of our interviews with Greg Cosell, if you ever watched Greg Cosell, if you ever, he's on a lot of national shows. I had Greg Cosell on many times from the Super Bowl, whether it be Miami, Las Vegas, New Orleans. Greg was always nice enough to come on our show. But the thing about Greg was he wasn't speculative. It wasn't emotional. Greg would always say, what was your opinion, Greg? It wasn't his opinion. It was, hey, this is what the film shows. All right. So this is pretty funny. This is my friend Colin Cowherd being blowhard-ish, not really understanding, because everybody wants, and I'll use the example of Anthony Richardson. Everybody wants Anthony Richardson. They want 6'4", 245, 4'4", 40, throws it through a brick wall. But yet the thing they don't see about Anthony Richardson is, at Florida, they just ignored it because he just ran over everybody or ran by everybody. Barely over 50% completion percentage. Can't read it. It's one read and run, but man, what an athlete that guy is, right? And they don't understand the mental side of the game. All these people, they look at Jamarcus Russell. He can throw it through the uprights from his knees. Great, man. That's wonderful. Can he read a defense at all? So if you look at the greatest quarterbacks of all time, Montana, Brady, and I'm not saying that you can't be athletic and be a great quarterback, but at some point in the process, you've got to be able to win from the pocket. So this is funny because Coward starts out with Brock Purdy's 1-6 down the stretch and Brock this and Brock that. And then he says, what did you see, Greg? And then Greg proceeds to break down Brock's game. So this is pretty funny. Take a watch.
Did film last year of Purdy going 1-6 down the stretch against playoff teams? Was it that he couldn't make certain throws? Was it that the yards after catch were limited? Like 1-6 from Purdy kind of jumps out at you when you look at his early success. Now, without Christian McCaffrey, it's a different offense. But what did the film say about Purdy last year when he had to start games with a patchwork group around him?
Okay, so before I play Greg, okay, so Colin is kind of, and this is what he does, right? Because anybody who he has generally on a show is not somebody who pores over the film. It's just some opinionated person who says, yeah, he sucks. You're right, Colin, right? So he just led Greg Cosell into essentially, because you heard it there, he said, Brock was 1-6. Well, the Niners were. Brock was 1-6. Brock, basically what he said is a lot of national blowhards say the same thing. Hey, Brock was carried by Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, all this talent, Kyle Shanahan. Anybody could do that with that offense. And when he didn't have it, then Brock Purdy sucked. Right, Greg Cosell?
Well, it's funny you mentioned Purdy because last week I watched 250 dropbacks of Purdy over a 2-day period. Purdy is a really good quarterback, Colin. The thing with Purdy is he's not Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. He's not necessarily the kind of quarterback, even though he does have mobility, that's going to make those kinds of plays by himself that we think of, that a Mahomes makes, an Allen makes, a Lamar makes. He certainly doesn't navigate the pocket the way a Joe Burrow does. But in terms of being what we call a post-snap operator, in other words, when he takes the snap, he has such an intuitive feel for what he sees, and therefore he's a really, really good timing and anticipation thrower. It's just innate to him. He sees it really quickly. So Purdy is a high-level post-snap operator. He's a really, really good player. It gets to that old question of how many quarterbacks, Colin, and you can go back years and years, are really great when their team's not very good. I mean, Purdy is a really good quarterback. He's just not a dynamic athlete who's necessarily going to make those kind of special plays on his own. But as a pocket quarterback, he's pretty high level.
Okay. So, first of all, on Colin's very show, and somebody on the text line just put leading question. Yeah, he basically said, hey, this guy went 1-6, and when he lost all his talent, he sucked, right, Greg Cosell? And then Greg Cosell proceeded to say, no, Colin, actually, from the pocket, getting through progressions, being accurate, all the things you need to be a pocket passer, he's actually really, really, really good. So he says that, but you think from a national standpoint, and to be honest, I don't care. If you want to be ill-informed, if you want to be stupid, if you want to not understand the game, if you want to realize that it's not all about height, weight, speed, and there's a thing called your brain, and as a quarterback, that's actually more important than how hard you throw the ball through a brick wall. If you don't understand the mental side of the game and you continually want to look stupid, that's on you, man. You do you. That's fine. Just because Greg Cosell, who pores over films and just said, I just watched 250 dropbacks of Brock Purdy. I just watched it. And remember, he's not biased. If he didn't like the 250 dropbacks of Brock Purdy, he'd have said he didn't. He'd have said, Colin, you're right, man. This guy's not getting it done. He's regressing, whatever the case may be. But Greg Cosell actually watched it. Greg Cosell actually knows what he's looking for and looking at. He's been doing it for over 30 years. So do you think that's going to make a difference? Do you think any of the talking head shows will go, God, I did see that. Greg Cosell did say that. That changes my opinion. Do you think it's going to matter to Screamin' A? Do you think it's going to matter to anybody on ESPN, any of those talking head shows? There's an old term I used to use. Don't confuse me with the facts. And that's exactly what's going to happen. Greg Cosell says that. He didn't say it in any snappy, jazzy, or fun way that's going to create headlines. So they're going to have their same opinion. It's not going to change Colin Cowherd's opinion. It's not going to change anybody else on Fox. It's not going to change anybody else on ESPN. That somebody actually watched it, that somebody actually took the time to do their job and say, actually, even though you led me to, he went 1-6 against those teams. Yeah, he stinks because he can't do those things without anybody else. And as Greg Cosell accurately said, and I've said this a million times, show me the quarterbacks when they don't have anybody who can do it. Because for some reason, Brock Purdy gets charged with, well, geez, they don't have McCaffrey, and they don't have Kittle, and they don't have Ayuk, and they don't have an offensive line, and they didn't have Trent Williams. And geez, he just couldn't pull a rabbit out of his ass. Well, who does that? Who can do that? When Patrick Mahomes doesn't have Travis Kelce and doesn't have Hill and doesn't have what's Kansas City's passing game like? It's not very good. Even with Andy Reid over the last couple of years, it actually hasn't been good. And you know how they beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl? With their defense. That's how they won that game. So look, nobody through history has done it. Tom Brady, when he won those Super Bowls, had a guy named Gronkowski, had a pretty good defense, had some guys. They've never done it by themselves. When Peyton Manning in the Colts offense was as good, Edgerrin James is in the Hall of Fame. Marvin Harrison's in the Hall of Fame. I mean, just go down the line. They've all had great ones. Nobody does it alone. But yet, for some weird reason, when Brock Purdy loses guys, he's supposed to be able to do it on his own. And that's what Greg Cosell just pointed out. Look, he lost guys. Nobody does it alone. And by the way, I watched, he's really high end. But if you don't throw it through a brick wall, if you don't run a 4.3 40, and that's the problem with not only commentators like that, who most of the talking head guys are during the day, screaming and yelling, and Brock's just not sexy enough, but it's also the evaluators. Because all of them want an Anthony Richardson. They just can't help it. And you look at it and you say, look, the guy didn't start enough games at Florida. Don't care. The guy barely completed 50% of his passes at Florida. Don't care. Didn't win a lot of games. Don't care. He's 6'4", 250, runs a 4.3. I'm drafting him. But no, Brock Purdy started 4 years at Iowa State. Look at the high end. Look at all these things he did. Don't care. Not sexy enough. Look, it's not going to change. And I've decided I don't care. The only reason I played that for you, because I think it's hilarious. Because I'm friends with Colin Cowherd. He's a friend of mine. It's fine. But he leads. Because normally what he does is he leads it to somebody else who's going to say, you're right, he sucks. But he actually led it to a guy who just said, glad you asked about Brock Purdy, because I just watched 250 dropbacks, and guess what? He's really, really good. And you know what? That's just the league, man. They're going to take Trey Lance. They're going to take Anthony Richardson. They're going to take height, weight, speed. They're going to take the mistake. They're just going to do it. They're going to take Jamarcus Russell, who had a 2-cent head and $1 million arm, and they still can't figure it out. And the best two quarterbacks, at least the consensus is, are Brady and Montana. And they didn't have the physical skills, but they had the brains, and they knew how to read a defense. I mean, I told you this a few weeks ago. There's a clip from the Super Bowl last year that's so good of Brady basically saying, when I walk up to the line of scrimmage, I don't have to snap the ball if I don't like what I see. I've got 3 plays in my head. If I don't like any of the plays, I'll call to something that'll be the least amount of damage, and I'll fight to see another day. These young quarterbacks who don't know what they see, they snap the ball and everything's going so fast they make a mistake. Brady's like, look, I have 2.2 seconds to make a decision on things, but I already know before I even snap the ball, all of it's done pre-snap. I know where they're going to be. I know where I'm going to go with the ball. I know everything before the ball is snapped. What these young quarterbacks who don't realize what they're seeing do, they snap the ball, then they try to figure it out. Brady, Montana, these guys figured it out before the ball snapped. I'm not saying that's what Brock is, but that's what Brock does. That's what Greg Cosell just said. It's pre-snap. It's knowing what's going to happen before it does. And then it's quickly getting through those progressions to just make sure, yep, that is what I see. Boom, 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 boom. Then he's accurate. Anticipatory thrower, all those kind of things. He's going to have a good year. He's going to have a really good year. I really believe that. And you know what? I think I mean, don't be mean. Don't get me wrong. He's just going to have a good year. And I think we've all just got to get to the point here in the Bay Area where we say, we don't care. Because the people who really know, the people in the league, the people who are scouts, the people who are coaches, defensive coaches. Steve Spagnuolo, after the Super Bowl, went up to him and went, "Hey, dude, you're really good." The defensive coordinator of the Chiefs, who's really good himself. Greg Cosell, who pours over tape day after day after day, year after year after year, loves Brock Purdy. Those are the people that count. Just a thought. Let's see. No, I appreciate it. Look, I've known Colin for 25 years. He's been a really good dude to me. He's had a lot of success. It's just in this case, I thought it was hilarious because he basically just led Greg right to it. And he knows Greg too. And Greg's like, no. No, you bring up a great point, 49er Brian, which is a lot of people in the league don't like him because the owner comes up to these scouts and comes up to these coaches and says, how did he make it to 262 and why didn't we pick him? Why are we paying this guy? Like, Robert, obviously, Jim Irsay's gone or Bob Irsay's gone. And, but if you own the Colts and you took Richardson, look, Jed York's not happy. He said it before. When Kyle Shanahan went up to him when Trey Lance was still here and said, sorry, but the third quarterback is still our best quarterback. Jed York has said this. That's not a great thing to hear because I'm paying the third pick in the draft and we gave up all those picks. Damn, that's not great. That's what I mean is the rest of the league, a lot of people are pissed off at Brock Purdy and it's not his fault, but it's because their owners have gone up to them and gone, why didn't we take that guy? The owner is just basically going up to their GM going, why didn't we get a quarterback for 3 years that made just $1 million? Why didn't we take that guy in the 7th round? Why didn't we do that? How come we're not smarter than that? That's why a lot of teams in the league, a lot of scouts in the league, they don't like Brock Purdy. They're pissed because they're like, this guy came from nowhere. That just shows you too, just to kind of pile in this whole thing. That just shows you that it's just really hard to figure out the position. So they pick 262 and that guy is doing this. Or Kurt Warner, who doesn't get picked at all, and he's in Iowa stocking shelves. He plays for the Barnstormers in the indoor league. That guy goes to the Hall of Fame. It's just, Joe Montana, Brady at pick 199. Meanwhile, they're picking the guys with the height, the weight, the speed. And I'm not saying that those guys can't be successful quarterbacks, but the two greatest of all time are not that. They're not the most athletic. We've all seen the Tom Brady picture in the from the combine. That guy's the greatest quarterback of all time. That guy. Anyway. Oh, thank you very much. Look at that. Thank you, Naomi. Very cool, man. More supers. 13 supers tonight. Very, very cool. Thank you for the love tonight. Very cool, man. Very nice. Thank you very much. Fuji, thoughts on the 49ers late bye week? Yeah, that's a problem, man. I don't think there's any doubt about it. You don't want to, you don't want one in week 4, but 14. But, again, Kyle would tell you take him when you take him. But, yeah, that's not great. Week 14 bye week is not great. Again, you'd like it maybe week 10. But the one thing is, and you got to remember this, and I believe this. And so let me just jump back up there because we were talking earlier about win totals. So let me pop this back up here. Look, Kyle's great. You start talking about December and late November. So I was talking about this the other day. So let's go after the Carolina. So Carolina stinks. Cleveland stinks. Now you're by, like you said, and now you're into December, and Kyle dominates that. So if you look at these two games, and, look, we don't know where injuries are. I know a couple of years ago they lost to Cleveland. But let's just have some fun. You're going to beat Carolina. You're going to beat the Browns. Then you're into Kyle's month. You're beating Tennessee. That's 3. You're beating the Colts. That's 4. Beating the Bears. That's 5. You're Seattle at home. I think they're going to be good. But you could finish the season on a 6-game winning streak. Arizona, you should beat at Arizona, but they're kind of a pain. So you could end, you're playing the Rams at home. You got New York there. Again, it's not easy going across the country. I expect Jackson Dart to start that game and not Russell Wilson. But, you're at least on a 6-game winning streak to win this thing. That's why I said I think that they could be 5-5 at one point, and a lot of people could go, well, this isn't a very good team. But then Kyle's going to Kyle because that's what he does, right, at the end of the season. I think that's what he could do. So anyway, there you go. We went deep on the Niners tonight. So there you go. Today's moves, when the 49ers are healthy, win totals, Ricky, Trent, Moody, and they still don't get Brock, and that's what we just played. Greg Cosell does. Nobody else does. I agree with that. Away games are tough no matter the opponent. I agree 100% with that. And especially the further you go, the tougher the game is. So week 2 at New Orleans. On paper, it's like New Orleans? Outside of Cleveland, probably the worst quarterback situation in the league, but that's a tough place to go, especially if you go on Bourbon Street the night before. Don't I know it? You go to New York this year. You go to, like you said, those aren't easy games, especially the further you go, the tougher it is. So I would agree with you 100%. Absolutely. I agree with you. All right, so there you go. There's a bit on the Niners. We're going to do an NFL wire and widen out the lens here, but it is still going to have something to do with the Niners, especially where it says down there, cut trade. So stay with me on this thing. Let's hit a little NFL wire and go around the league here.
It's time for a look at the NFL stories making headlines. It's the NFL Wire on John Lund Unleashed.
All right, here's your final preseason game. Oh, we made it. Almost. Steelers-Panthers tonight, Pats and Giants. And then there's your Friday nighters. Eagles-Jets, Vikings, Titans, Bears, KC, Falcons, Cowboys, blah, blah, blah. By the way, see the Seahawks and Packers? You see that where they had joint practice today? Gigantic fight in that one. That was crazy. Trey Lance comes back against the Niners. Chargers will not play any of their starters in the preseason finale, nor will Kyle's Niners. Not playing anybody. Already had enough injuries last week. So there's your final preseason schedule for the final week. And that always gets you excited. It's like, finally, preseason's over. And they only have 3 of them now. Man, they used to have 6. Dennis Brown used to tell me they had 6 preseason games. Can you imagine that? It's like, come on. We need 6 preseason games. That's crazy. So a couple of things. Another one of the reasons why you're not going to see anything. So NFL Wire, last preseason week. Injury. This is Derek Harmon. One of the guys that some people were saying that the Niners might take this guy in the draft. First-round pick out of Oregon. He gets carted off the field tonight. There you go. The Carolina-Pittsburgh game. You've seen a guy carted off the field, so I don't need to keep it up there long. But if the Niners or the Chargers or anybody else was thinking about playing starters in the final preseason game, that's a stark reminder. But, I mean, the Niners, they lost Dominic Puni last week. By the way, we're getting good news on Puni. Think he might play against Seattle in week number 1. We'll keep our fingers crossed on that one. But their first-round pick, Derek Harmon, gets carted off the field, does Pittsburgh. So if Kyle's paying attention to that, I'm sure he is like, okay, I was thinking about playing anybody. Nope. That's why there's no cut-down days up until just the final one, and Tuesday will be the only cut-down day. And the reason they do that is because they don't want to play guys in the preseason. So Derek Harmon goes down, the first-round pick for the Steelers. That would be enough to say, yeah, we're thinking about playing guys. We're not doing that. So don't play any guys in the preseason, man. We don't need any injuries this close to the season. I was just talking about the Giants. Late in the season, the Giants are going to play the Niners, and that one's at New York. And that could start a long winning streak for the 49ers because it goes Giants, then Cardinals, and then I just told you that winning streak, Carolina, and et cetera, down the line. This is Jackson Dart. Started at USC, went to Ole Miss, was a late first-round pick by the Giants. Russell Wilson's going to start there, but we've seen Wilson. Gets traded by the Seahawks, so they get a bunch for him. Stinks in Denver, stinks in Pittsburgh. I expect him to be just as bad in New York, and I think Jackson Dart could be starting that game against the Niners. Here's the rookie tonight.
Clean pocket, fires, caught, touchdown, just like that. Greg Dulcich, the tight end.
It's good to hear Al Michaels. You got a little Kirk Herbstreit in there. It's starting to feel like it's the regular season, so the Thursday night football. Jackson Dart's nice. He's a nice player. I think he's going to be good in New York. That's not the easiest stage, but he seems to kind of have that that mentality for it. So Jackson Dart throws a touchdown. I got a feeling he's going to be the quarterback after a few weeks. Russell Wilson, man, it was the athleticism and, moving in the pocket and all those things. And once he lost that, we saw him many, many times do it against the Niners, but he has definitely lost that. So I don't think Russell Wilson's going to start for long in New York. Plus, I just don't think he's a New York kind of guy, his quirky personality. I just don't think it's going to work very long. And then finally on the wire, and this has to do a little bit more with the 49ers. So NFL.com put some guys that they thought were going to be traded or cut at cut down day next Tuesday. And a couple of receivers caught my eye. And with the injuries to the 49ers receivers, and again, if you just joined us, Russell Gage is the latest to go down. So basically Ricky Pearsall in bubble wrap and put like guards outside of his door because he can't get hurt. Hopefully, Juwan Jennings, they get a new contract done, and those two guys at least will start. I don't know who would start as the third wide receiver, but here's a couple of names. First of all, I said this a couple of weeks ago. If Adam Thielen is on the trade block, which, look, Carolina's not going anywhere, so the former Viking would be a great addition to the 49ers. Everybody's running some sort of a version of the Shanahan offense, and Dave Canales is the head coach of Carolina. He was in Seattle. He was in Jacksonville. They run a version of that. They took McMillan, the rookie out of Arizona. Leggett was an early pick. Coker, Jimmy Horn Jr. They've got a lot of wide receivers. If I'm the Niners, I'm calling about Thielen right now. Veteran wide receiver, has had great years in Minnesota. I realize he's older. I think he's like 35 years old. Do not care. Thielen can get you through the first 3 weeks at least when Robinson's gone. And even if Robinson is back, I think Adam Thielen's the type of guy that you want on your roster. Veteran guy. Like it says, Thielen celebrating his 35th birthday this week. I don't care. Veteran guy to have on the team. Sturdy, stays healthy. I would sign this guy in 2 seconds. Sixth round pick or a swap or something like that. Swaps are very right now are really popular. 6 for a 7, 6 for a 5, whatever the case may be. I would absolutely positively go get this guy yesterday. So Adam Thielen is a guy that NFL.com says could be a trade. As you see right there, we've got a lot of young receivers on that team. They need to play with Bryce Young. They're not going anywhere. Adam Thielen would be a perfect addition to the 49ers. If I'm John Lynch, I'm doing that yesterday. And then this guy's been talked about a ton. Makes a lot of sense because he's already been here before. Do I love this guy? No. But could he acclimate to the 49ers? Knows the offense already. Could easily pick things up and play in week 1. And, wrong guy. That's a corner. Hold on just a second. I have another. And I was doing so good, and I was going to be really fancy, and you were going to be impressed by all that stuff. But hang on a second. Wrong guy. Hold on. I have it here. Oh, man, look at I was being all fancy with it. Maybe I didn't load it. Oh, here it is right here. There we go. I loaded it. Just loaded the wrong one. Kendrick Bourne, former 49er. Look, I've never been a huge Bourne fan. He had the drops early in his 49ers career, but Kyle Shanahan's a big fan. Had a knee injury in New England, but they've got some new receivers. But Jalen Polk, it says right there, he got hurt today. Jalen Polk got put on injured reserve, so I don't know if they're going to cut Kendrick Bourne, but NFL.com said he's a cut candidate, and it says right at the bottom there, obviously, I wouldn't rule out a return to San Francisco if Bourne is cut, depending on wide receiver health countdowns. He could easily get acclimated to the 49ers, is a former 49er, could play probably quickly in week 1, probably easier than Sky Moore, who they just got from Kansas City. And like I said, Sky Moore to me returned a touchdown or a punt for a touchdown against Seattle 2 weeks ago in a preseason game. I think he's more of a special teams guy. I don't think he's a great receiver. If he is, he's a slot guy. Bourne could play on the outside. So, look, I would do both. I would go after Kendrick Bourne. I would go after Adam Thielen. If I had to put him in order, I'd go Thielen over Bourne. But Bourne knows the offense, was here, knows the culture, knows you got to be tough, knows you got to block. So, to me, Bourne and Thielen make sense because if you think about it, obviously, Ayuk's not going to be back for probably maybe up to week 6. I don't think it's going to be longer than that from what I understand. But again, Russell Gage gets hurt. Robinson's out the first 3 games. It's going to be at least a month for Watkins. And even with Watkins, he's a rookie, so we don't even know what he's really going to be, even though we've seen him in practice and he caught the 50-yarder in the preseason game. I like the kid, but I don't know exactly what he's going to be. So it's not like he's going to come back and I can count on him because I haven't even seen what he is. Thielen's a 35-year-old guy, had lots of good years in Minnesota. I know what he could be. Bourne isn't the greatest. I know that. Did have some drops here. But at least if you brought in a Bourne, if you brought in a Thielen, all these guys they brought in left and right, it's basically like a turnstile with these guys they're bringing in and out as far as receivers. I don't know if any of these guys can play. At least with Thielen and Bourne, they, to a certain extent, as Thielen gets older, they've done it. And in Thielen's case, I mean, he's a guy that's caught, I think 1 year he caught like 118, 119 passes. Let's go. I mean, that game in Seattle, you don't get any Georgia Southerns, in the first week if you're Alabama. Like, there is no preseason's over. You're going to Seattle week 1. You got to win that football game. And if you get Jennings done, that's great. Jennings, Pearsall, you still don't have a third wide receiver. So I'd call Carolina yesterday, and you put Adam Thielen on this team. I feel a hell of a lot better about my wide receiver crew. Don't love Bourne, but I'd bring him on for some depth because my God, the receivers, just ridiculous what's going on right now. So there you go. So there is your NFL wire, little NFL preseason, final week. Injury to Derek Harmon of the Steelers, which will scare every team into not playing anybody. Jackson Dart, who I think the Niners will see late in the season in New York. I don't think Russell Wilson's going to start for very long. And then a cut and a trade. They think maybe Thielen will be traded by Carolina. I'd do that in 2 seconds if I was the Niners. And again, they think that maybe a cut for, there you go, a former 49ers wide receiver. So there you go, Kendrick Bourne. What would you think? There you go. So there's that. Anything else? Why are we talking about artichokes? What's going on? What am I missing here? Thoughts on that? Because, like I said, they were picking up receivers and we're all like, oh, maybe that guy. They seriously, they need a receiver to play in that Seattle game and be effective. So there is that. Yeah, he does kind of have he does have a bit of an offensive lineman neck. He does. Yeah, I would agree with you as well. All right, there you go. That is your NFL wire. And finally, before we get out of here, you know what we do. We always do the sweet, clean, family-friendly caboose pistol.
John Lund Unleashed presents the caboose pistol.
Wedged in the crack of her buttocks.
Somehow, someway, Lundo thinks this is the best way to leave a final impression on you for the day.
The old caboose pistol, everybody has one.
Did you say caboose pistol?
I know some women who could hide a machine gun in there.
Yeah.
Leave me out of this, you weirdo. Here's John.
All right, let me share my X feed with you. Some of you are probably watching on X at John Lund Radio. So let me share that with you because. So let's go to the far right over here. Ignore my face there. Go to the right to the New York Post. I had this up. I don't know what happened to it, but it says ChatGPT users mourn their AI lovers after a big tech update destroys them. Quote, my heart is broken into pieces. So essentially what happens, because I just used Grok here, what happened is there was an update, I think that got to like Chat GPT 5 or whatever. So apparently I did not know you could even do this. Very lonely people made AI lovers. I hate that term. My wife, who was in the room earlier, can tell you I hate the word lover. But somehow I don't know. I swear, I'm not just saying this. I didn't know you could make a AI lover with like Chat GPT or something. So people had done that. But then I guess when you do the update, that lover gets erased. And it made people very sad. So it says ChatGPT's 5.0 update on August 7th, disrupting user-created romantic relationships as evidenced by heartbroken Reddit users on My Boyfriend's AI, reflecting a growing trend where over 35 million use apps like Replica for AI romance since 2017 per Wired. So basically what happens here is they make romance. They have romances, I guess, with AI or whatever. And with this update, it erased their romance. And that, I was going to say person, but that AI relationship is gone because of the update. And all these people are sad. Is that where that's the society we're living in? Because I think it's even bad enough that, and people talk about this all the time. Like everyone's staring at their phones. Nobody can interact anymore, especially like my son's 21. It's kind of like that. Like they're in a bar and they're rather than actually interacting and having some game, they're chatting back and forth. He's at the edge of it. He still has some game and can talk to him. But I mean, the next generation coming forward, like I fear for my stepchildren who are almost 16, 15, 14, almost 16, 14. And it's like, I fear that they'll have no interaction whatsoever and have no game whatsoever because everything's just going to be on a chat. And so then these people take it to the whole different level where they're like, you know what? I don't even want a boyfriend or girlfriend, a physical boyfriend or girlfriend. We'll just do it through like a chat. And then I risk losing that because there's an update. That's where we live. That's a society we live in. So they're upset and sad because they lost their AI. And I got to believe this is guys, right? Like women don't do this, right? Women don't have a made up AI boyfriend, right? This has got to be like 99.9% guys, right? Who have some sort of an AI girlfriend, right? Has to be, because women I don't think do that. I could be wrong, but anyway, that's what's going on in our world. There you go. Thoughts, questions, comments. Oh no, there's an update. I'm going to lose my lava. And I know that's a creepy word. So there you go. That is your sweet, clean, family-friendly caboose pistol. All right, tonight on episode 223, again, today's moves. Let me do this real quick for you. I'll recap everything. Today's moves, there you go. Don't care about Sudfeld or Mordecai, because if any of those guys are ever relevant, the season's over. Official, Sky Moore is a 49er. I think he's more of a special teams guy than a help. Therefore, like I told you about the receivers, I'd love to add Adam Thielen to this team. I wouldn't mind Kendrick Bourne. I don't think Moore is going to be much, at least for a few weeks. I think he's more of a special teamer. Trey Brown, I told you right when he got here he was going to be hurt, because my friends in Seattle said he was going to be hurt, and he is. He goes to injured reserve, so there's that. So that's today's moves. When the 49ers are healthy, we gave you this a little bit earlier. Last year, they number one most injured. They went 6-11. 2020, after a Super Bowl, number one most injured. Bad season. If they are fairly healthy last year, when they went to the Super Bowl in 2023, 29th, which is good, lost the Super Bowl. That's what it's going to come down to for the 49ers. How healthy can they be? Win totals. A lot of people were optimistic tonight. They went over the 10. And then I was on ESPN radio last night. They said ESPN bet said 10.5. They said, Lund, are you going over or under? I went under that number. I'm thinking like 9 and 8. You can disagree with me. The number that DK Sportsbook put together is 10. Are you taking over or under on that? We discussed that. Ricky and Trent spoke today. Jake Moody missed 2 field goals in practice. We'll talk about practice, but get used to it. That's what we're going to do all season until Jake misses a key kick. I don't think Kyle is going to have a very long leash on him. They still don't get Brock. We played that a little bit earlier for you. Great.
So when you looked at film last year of Purdy going 1-6 down, films say about Purdy.
Yeah. Come on, Greg.
Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, he's not necessarily the kind of quarterback, even though he does have mobility, that's going to make those kinds of plays by himself that we think of, that a Mahomes makes, an Allen makes, a Lamar makes. He certainly doesn't navigate the pocket the way a Joe Burrow does. But in terms of being what we call a post-snap operator, in other words, when he takes the snap, he has such an intuitive feel for what he sees, and therefore he's a really, really good timing and anticipation thrower. It's just innate to him. He sees it really quickly. So Purdy is a high-level post-snap operator.
Ha, ha, ha. Take that, talking heads. We played that for you a little bit earlier today. They still don't get Brock. Last preseason week, injuries, Jackson Dart and cut or trade Adam Thielen, or maybe an old friend could come back for the 49ers and help save the wide receiver room. And then Caboose lost your girlfriend with the update, and that is episode 223 tonight. Thank you to everybody, by the way. Great job with the supers tonight. 14. Scott, the latest to do it as well. Thanks for the great show. Thanks for the great support, Scott. We appreciate it. Thanks to Scott. Thanks to Naomi tonight. Thanks to Fuji, Tangy, 49ers faithful. Fuji had a few tonight. Thank you very much. My wife, Lainey, was in. That's nice. I'll have to give that back to her. Carlos was in tonight. Pine started us off on the supers tonight. Thanks to everybody for supers tonight. Very, very nice of you all to support the show like that. Thank you on a Thursday for doing that. Before you get out of here, thank you. Please make sure if you're watching on X tonight, or you're watching on LinkedIn, Facebook, or any of the other platforms, please make sure that you are subscribed to John Lund Unleashed. Make sure you hit that like button before you get out of here tonight as well, so that the algorithm will say, hey, that's a pretty damn good show. And also make sure that you have your alerts on so we can hit you up throughout the day when news breaks, other sports we do throughout the day as well. And then we always hit up the Niners at 7 o'clock Pacific every single weeknight. Tomorrow night we'll do Bottom of the Pint. Friday nights we do an interactive Giant show during the day or during the game, which is a whole lot of fun. We like drinking and hanging out and drinking beers. So if you haven't stopped by on a Friday night, do tomorrow night. We'll have a lot of fun with the Giants, even though they stink lately and they got doubled up by the Padres today. We'll have a lot of fun with the Giants. And if you haven't come out and hung out on one of those nights, stop by on one of those. That's always a great time. So do that tomorrow night. Make sure those alerts are on. Hit us with the like, and please make sure you are subscribed to John Lund Unleashed. Everybody, thanks again for the Supers tonight. Thanks for hanging out. Great time had by all. Have a wonderful
Thanks for hanging out with John Lund Unleashed. We'll try to be better next time, though I wouldn't hold my breath. Please like and subscribe on the John Lund Unleashed Pod YouTube channel. Watch live shows weekdays at 8 a.m. on YouTube, Instagram, and X. And make sure to have your alerts on for shows throughout the day or night. All things Lund can be found at johnlundunleashed.com. johnlundunleashed.com.
Goodbye!